Welcome to Season 2 of Purdue University College of Science's Superheroes of Science podcast. I'm Stephen.
And I'm Sarah. We will be discussing anything and everything related to science. If you have a science question, tweet it to us at Purdue SOS, and we will try and find someone to answer it for you. Welcome to Superheroes of Science. We're here today with Lynn Bryan, Director of Catalyst and Professor of Science Education in the Departments of Curriculum and Instruction and Physics and Astronomy.
Welcome, Lynn. Thank you.
Yeah, we made it through. She looks so, I mean, you're so
Well, I know,
formal when we do those.
Yeah.
Welcome. We're not usually that formal. Let's start with the director side. The Director of Catalyst. What does Catalyst?
What is Catalyst?
Yeah,
Okay.
let's go with what
All
is
right.
first. Because, I mean, I'm guessing people have no idea.
Well, Catalyst stands for the Center for Advancing the Teaching and Learning of STEM. And so we are a research-oriented unit, meaning that we focus most of our efforts on research, in particular K-12 STEM education. So we're a center that focuses on advancing STEM in the K-12 context. But we do more than research. A lot of our research is in classrooms. And so we work with developing curriculum. We work with classrooms to develop programs with them. If we're doing research, that often involves, in the midst of teaching, we are collecting research data on how students are learning or how teachers are learning, teachers' strategies, anything that has to do with the K-12 education context. It might be assessment, it might be issues of equity and diversity, it might be looking at novel strategies that are not typically used. For example, in a kindergarten classroom right now we're using some modeling tools with iPads, and teachers are learning how to make their science instruction more discourse rich. In other words, asking kindergartners to explain, asking kindergartners about their ideas, and asking kindergartners to develop models of different states of matter. And so things that for that age level might be novel for a teacher. So the teacher's learning as well as the students, and we're learning about what children are learning. So there's a wide range of different topics that we do research on. All of them involve collaborations and partnerships with K-12 classrooms, mostly in Indiana.
How do, if a teacher is like, well, I'd be excited in being involved in something like that,
Yeah.
how do you find teachers to do that? How could a teacher set themselves up to be a part of a future research thing?
Well, ideally, we would have a research grant that in which we would be seeking through principals, through our network of teachers, through administrators. We would be seeking, specific grade levels or specific classrooms, any teacher who might want to be involved. And so when we're writing the grant, that's when we reach out to different school districts and different teachers who have networks with other teachers and get the word out to find who might be interested. And then once we do get funding, that's when the commitment comes. And so we'll reach out to the various schools to see which ones would be interested in actually letting us conduct the research in the classroom, because oftentimes research in a classroom involves interviewing teachers, students, observations in classrooms, videotaping classrooms. We want to be as unseen as possible, but it still can influence instruction. On the other side, a lot of classrooms are afforded resources and new curriculum and new techniques that they get to implement in a classroom that they might not otherwise have. So when we do research projects and teachers are involved, we often offer stipends and professional development and different incentives that make it worth their time to participate. Aside from that, we also have programs that may not involve research but help us to get to know teachers in Indiana and build our network. So for example, through the Wabash Valley Education Center, we're starting to offer some programs on certain Fridays where teachers can learn about problem and project-based approaches to science. There are some that are going to be math instruction specific to help teachers prepare students for the iLearn. How to integrate engineering design into science and mathematics classrooms at the, early childhood level, kindergarten through 2nd grade, the elementary level, more 3rd grade through 6th grade, then middle school and high school, so we try to divide it up by grade level. So there are opportunities that they might find out through their education center, through, their school might have like newsletters or things. We try to get information out that way. They can always Google Purdue Catalyst and come to our website and see what's available. For instance, if they're interested in a summer program or they want to see what projects we're doing, and just email us, and we'd be happy to hear from teachers.
Oh,
excellent.
Good. I like that. All right, so let's jump into the other side, the other half of your role. Before, like I say, I know that we want to talk about things that's happening.
Right.
Like this is released Monday, we want to talk about the conference. But before we talk about the conference, let's talk about what you do as a professor in, curriculum instruction and physics and astronomy.
Right. So the predominant work that I do at Purdue is research on learning. And the area of learning that I'm most interested in is in the physical sciences. So I have a background in chemistry, former physics teacher. I have a joint appointment with physics and astronomy. So I'm really interested in teachers learning to teach physical sciences in the K-12. So right now I have a project in kindergarten, but I also have a project that's in middle high school, so across the spectrum.
Let me ask real fast, because I hear the word physical sciences thrown out a lot. What's under that umbrella?
So
I know it's kind of a weird question, but it seems like people, I don't know if they think of it differently or if I'm just unsure what they think.
So usually it refers to chemistry and physics, but I also, here at Purdue, we also include earth and atmospheric and planetary science. EAPS, Earth, Atmosphere, and Planetary Science, is a good example of the interdisciplinary nature of science. There's not only chemistry involved, there's not only physics involved, it's really a field that blurs the line of these artificially demarcated areas of science. But in terms of the programs that we have at Purdue, when we say physical science, we're usually including those 3 areas, in contrast to biological sciences. Or life sciences. And so with my background in chemistry and physics in particular, I focus mostly, I can't say that I have a lot of expertise. I have enough expertise, I think, to help my daughter in earth and atmospheric science types of courses, but I'm not sure, I'd have to do a lot of work to be able to teach it well. But as a former physics teacher, and I was a chemist and chemistry major before going into teaching, I've had a lot of experience teaching physics and chemistry, developing curriculum for that. So I'm interested in not only teachers learning of the content, but also teachers learning of how to teach in ways that are inquiry-based, in ways that engage students, in ways that help students learn to think and understand and explain physical phenomenon, explain how the world works. And then I'm also interested in the student side of that. So for a while I spent probably about the first 15 years of my career really in what we call teacher education, helping teachers not only learn science but how to teach science. And as my research portfolio has expanded, I've been doing a lot of work on once the teachers have gone through their professional development or learning something and they're implementing it in the classroom, I want to see how students are constructing knowledge about the science that they're being taught, and get more insight into students' abilities to understand science.
I think that's really interesting. I know as a teacher, it's definitely one thing to understand content, but then to teach it in a way that helps your students understand it, I feel like that's just a totally different
It is, and it requires more than just a textbook. I remember a friend of mine who was going into teaching, and there was a third person in the conversation, and he said, why do you need to spend your whole summer preparing to teach? Don't you have the textbook? And my friend and I looked at each other like, there's such a misconception about
Absolutely.
teaching.
Mm-hmm.
There is so much to helping children build the knowledge, the skills of asking questions at the right time,
Yes.
the skills of developing coherent lessons that build an idea, learning how to scaffold. There are just so many things that are underneath what we might see in day-to-day instruction, or what we might see kids, our own children bringing home from the classroom. There's so much more that goes into that, so much more knowledge and capabilities that need to be developed that people, I think the general public doesn't appreciate about teaching.
Well, and this is just giving me chills here listening to you. Thank you for recognizing and bringing, saying this out loud, that there is a lot that I think good teachers make it look easy.
Right,
It just kind of happens, but
Right.
there's a lot of hours of preparation and
Right.
understanding that goes into making those lessons
Right.
good.
It's not just going on the internet and finding a
No.
fun activity. An activity is not a lesson. There's more to doing, to teaching well than just having a fun activity for kids to
I
do.
appreciate hearing you say it, because as Sarah and I are in classrooms most of the time and stuff, and oftentimes there's I don't know if it's a stereotype or what, but people in the ivory tower don't seem to understand what's happening in the classroom a lot. And so I love that people that know how much work it takes to do that. People with your background, the fact that you're helping teachers now constantly, you're not just someone who's like, oh yeah, you should do this, go do this. And I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And I think it's so important for teachers to realize there are people like you out here too. Not just some people who are more disconnected. Unfortunately, you'll have that with anything, but some people are more disconnected. There are a lot of people who aren't disconnected in the classroom. They're in the classroom, they're helping teachers, they're working with teachers, not telling teachers what to do.
Right.
Which
right.
is a huge difference.
It's the only way that I can do my job and do it well, is to be in classrooms and work directly with teachers and work directly with students and keep up to date with what their requirements are. And there's so many accountability measures these days and so many pressures on teachers, and the nature of the classroom has changed since I was a teacher. I won't tell you how long ago, but the only way to do my job well and to be able to think about teaching and collaborate with teachers is to be in the classroom with them. Plus, I have students myself, so I'm still teaching as well, while I'm doing this other part.
Yeah, you teach a number of courses here on campus.
So, I have.
And I know you were, I don't know if you still are, in charge of the pre-service physics teachers?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I was going to say, I saw that too.
Yeah. Supervise student teachers, and now that I'm a director of a center, I don't teach as many courses, but a lot of my projects involve developing curriculum, and oftentimes when a teacher is learning something in one of our projects, we'll offer the opportunity to just co-teach with us so that they don't feel the pressure of having to learn it very quickly and do it themselves and be watched. What's more important is that they feel comfortable and they feel like they can, for instance, kindergarten, teaching with technology and teaching modeling in kindergarten, we'll co-teach with them first if they want. It's not just about us going in and analyzing what you do as a teacher. It's really about a partnership. And so those kinds of experiences, I'm working directly with the students, and I'm experiencing what the kindergarten teacher is experiencing. Or if I'm in a high school class, I'm experiencing in part what the high school teacher, maybe not under as much pressure as they are these days. But and it's a joy to me. I mean, that's why I eventually, moved into the teaching field.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, that's one way teachers can get better, right, and be more efficient at their job and keep growing and learning. And so let's transition then into what's happening later in the week, well, next week right now, because Monday will be released, with the STEM conference.
Conference is going to be held January 15th, next Wednesday. So this will come out on a Monday, just 2 days from the release of this. And it really is focused on K-12 teachers. Of course, anybody who is interested in K-12 education or STEM education in general can, we will welcome them to the conference. But we have geared this conference toward the benefit of teachers. And it's actually seen for many teachers as a source of professional development. So the conference runs from 9 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. And during that time, there's an opportunity to go to 4 different sessions. Each session falls under one of 3 main themes. One theme is STEM instructional strategies. So this is a little bit of a broader type of a focus to the presentation. So an instructional strategy might be something like I mentioned before, modeling, or it might be project-based learning strategies in the classroom. It's not necessarily specific to a lesson that a teacher wants to present, or some kind of a new idea that maybe a professor is going to introduce at the conference. It's broader than that. Okay. Then we have STEM curriculum, and in those sessions, those are more specific. So I'm going to present a lesson on states of matter that I've been using in my classroom, and it's generated a lot of interest among students. Or I'm going to present some curriculum we have available at the Columbian Zoo that you can integrate into your classroom. Oh. So things that are specifically lessons, activities, those kinds of things would fall in the strand of STEM curriculum. And then this year, we added a strand for STEM career and workforce development, STEM career exposure. And that's been driven largely by the STEM strategic plan. In fact, the whole conference is sort of oriented around the theme of the STEM strategic plan in Indiana, a 6-year ambitious plan for the state of Indiana. If you go to the Indiana Department of Ed website, you can just type in strategic plan and be able to read through what Indiana is planning for the next 6 years. But the STEM workforce and career focus is one area where we would like to facilitate teachers meeting the objectives and requirements of that particular part of the strategic plan. This past summer, Indiana passed a law that out of the 90 professional growth points that teachers need to earn for their recertification, 15 need to focus on career and workforce development. And being in the area of STEM, the conference, this particular strand, and then also a workshop will focus specifically on STEM careers and workforce development. So we have a number of people who are going to come in and present, and the time in those sessions is professional development for teachers, so it can help them meet the required 15 hours toward career and workforce awareness development for their recertification. So those are the 3 strands: STEM instructional strategies, STEM curriculum, and STEM career awareness, workforce development. And then we have some STEM research as a 4th strand, but we're offering it as a poster session this year. And the idea is that way teachers, you have 4 sessions you can go to. There's so many to choose from. I think we have 60 sessions to choose from. Wow. You have time to go to 4. And so in terms of research, instead of offering it as a session, we're going to offer it as a poster session during the break that teachers can go through and interact with the person that's presenting directly on research that might be of interest to them, research that might impact their classroom. So this would be yet another way that teachers could make some connections to Purdue if they're interested in, any of the research and professional development that's involved in that. I mentioned that we're going to do a workshop. We have an extra workshop that it's fee-based. It's a $25 workshop. We're almost at capacity, so if anybody would register actually registration online will end before this airs.
Yeah.
So you can register on site. And if there's space available, you know, we would welcome anybody in the workshop. But this workshop will be specifically about the STEM career and workforce development. We will offer a variety of ways that you can integrate STEM career awareness into your classroom beyond just doing STEM career bingo or bringing in somebody from, you know, Arconic into your classroom to talk about what careers they have. We'll give a variety of ways that career awareness can be integrated into your STEM classroom. We will offer a couple of different examples of how that can be integrated. So we have a life science. We won't do the whole, you know, lesson. Actually, it's a unit, but we will provide the resources and just give a sort of a walkthrough and just a little bit of an experience given the limited time. And then we'll have one that's more appropriate for elementary teachers, the K-6, and that one will be more toward physical science and engineering. But just some examples that teachers can sort of experience what that might be like integrated into everyday instruction. And then we're going to offer a menu of different opportunities that teachers will be able to sign up for. We will arrange, they're not externships, but they are half-day, one-day, two-day visits to different industries like Eli Lilly. Some places at Discovery Park here on campus. We're working to arrange a visit with the Whirlpool House on campus, but ways that teachers can begin to meet those 15 hours, knowing that many teachers may not have the connections to do that. And in turn, when teachers have these connections and are meeting people from various industries around Indiana, that could lead to a nice partnership between the school and those businesses or industry. So I guess, you know, sort of in a nutshell, this whole conference is about facilitating teachers' professional development in STEM, meeting the, helping them meet the objectives of the Indiana STEM strategic plan, and facilitating, you know, what they might need to you know, develop their interest in STEM education and their capacity to offer engaging inquiry-based STEM in the classrooms.
Thank you. That, I know, just a question that came up for me when you were describing, these are wonderful opportunities for teachers, and I'm really excited for the conference myself, so I can imagine teachers excited. But if they, let's say capacity is full for that workshop, for the career awareness workshop, will there be any resources from that workshop afterwards released for teachers maybe that couldn't get in or weren't able to attend?
Yeah, I think so. And you know, one thing that we're looking at is if there is interest, we can offer, we're thinking about offering some things online that teachers, you know, not just who can come to Purdue, but teachers who might be in Evansville or might be in Fort Wayne, somewhere that's a little out of the radius to be able to travel every day. We're looking at ways to offer some of these resources, you know, more than just downloading a PDF. Maybe having some kind of a module. So I think right now we're exploring the interest in that and the need for that, and it might be a possibility that we could collaborate with the Indiana Department of Ed to, you know, have a broader audience and broader access. But it's definitely on our radar. We'll test it. You know, it's the first time we're going to be doing it at the conference, but, you know, when we find that things work, our goal is to disseminate it as widely as possible.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So a teacher going to a professional development, I'm going to speak somewhat generically, what their mindset or their goals, what should they be thinking about when they come into one? The new teachers seem like they're just overwhelmed, and the old teachers are there to check a box sometimes. Not all the time. Wherever I am, don't not all the time. But it's like, but for me to get the most as a teacher, for me to get the most out of a professional development thing like the STEM conference, what should I go into that thinking about ahead of time?
That's a great question. I would say the first thing is just to go in, you know, really open-minded, not to necessarily have expectations that you're going to walk away with, teacher-ready materials that you can just, you have a script and that you can, sometimes professional development will be able to offer those kinds of things. But really it's about, your curriculum, the needs of the students, and looking for ways, looking for things that, I guess if I think back to all the professional development I did as I was becoming a physics teacher, because I became a physics teacher who had a chemistry major, and I had some physics teaching experience as an undergraduate in college physics labs, but that's a far cry from teaching high school. Yes. So I did as many professional developments as I could. It wasn't just about the activities, it was also about the strategies. And so, I spent a significant amount of time looking at the ways that the professional development providers organized the instruction, and got beyond just doing the activity, like how did they organize it. So a lot of the materials that I develop will be purposefully designed in a particular order to build knowledge. Yes. Okay. There'll be certain points where questions are really necessary and really important, as opposed to just telling the student, what they maybe should have seen or what they should do or whatever. So I guess, when I go into professional development, it's not about so much about that teachers don't know things. It's about refining and taking it, to the next level of excellence. So we see a lot of excellent teachers, and we learn from a lot of excellent teachers. But every professional development should offer you something that you can take to refine, yes, revise, and maybe even add something, new to your curriculum. And so going in with an open mind that, maybe not everything is going to be useful, but they're, what can be useful, what can I learn? Mm-hmm. And just as an example, this workshop that we're going to do, we're going to have K through 12 teachers. When we do an elementary activity, I don't want the high school teachers to turn off, right, and say, oh, it's elementary. As a high school teacher, I would look at that and say, how can I use this in a high school classroom? How can I integrate it at the level that I'm teaching this physics class, which is going to be much different than, in a third grade class, and vice versa. Yes, some things that we might present might be too high of a level for elementary kids, but what could you take from that and use for elementary students? Everything's adaptable. I have certain activities that I've done with second graders, and I've done with college age students.
We do too.
It's, the activity itself is not what's important. It's what I do with it.
Yes.
That process.
And so when you go into professional development sort of with that orientation of, how am I going to be able to use these things, then it's like being in a candy store. You've got all these opportunities. It's hard to make decisions. Everything looks good.
And that's, I won't say it's a game, but I guess a strategy that Sarah and I work on. Like NSTA last year. You read the titles, you go to all these sessions for day after day after day until you're exhausted and your mind no longer works. Well, not that mine worked that well to begin with, but some of them you go to and you're like, oh, this isn't exactly what I thought. And I hear people walk out, well, that's nothing I can use. And we talk to other people and they're like, oh, well, there's nothing I can use. Mm-hmm. And that's very narrow-minded. And our goal was to, what is something, it could be the worst presentation, could maybe nothing to do with what I thought it was, but what is something that they've done or they're doing that I could still adapt for me? Mm-hmm. And so we kind of took that as almost a challenge to each other.
Right.
That's why I say it's almost a game at that point. What is something, what did you get out of that session? Is something that you can adapt for you. And when we did that, I think it helped us.
Right.
Making sure we were in a growth mindset, ready to grow, ready to be a better educator. Right. This is something I could take, and there was not a single session that we went to that we could not find something that we could then adapt for us. And so once we got to that point that we were ready, and we did have the growth mindset, we were ready to grow and become better teachers ourselves, better educators. That is what made the difference, because I know just like everybody else. I've been guilty before. I've been to some. I've walked out, thought, was junk. Basically, why was it junk? Well, it wasn't what I was looking for exactly. And I was being closed-minded that day and not being willing to think about how I could still get something out of it. Mm-hmm. And so what you're saying I love, because like I said, that's something Sarah and I, we challenged each other for just last year in STA, and it made the whole conference more fun.
Yeah. And sometimes, professional development is just going to be personal. If you can enhance your own science knowledge or engineering knowledge. I'll go to sessions at conferences about engineering education because it's become a big part of, sort of the scope of what I look at, and I learn a lot from my engineering colleagues. While they may have some great activities and things, part of it is learning more about the teaching of engineering design, because I didn't, I wasn't an engineer, and I haven't taken engineering classes, and so to learn from them information that is knowledge for me helps me become a better teacher too. So it's not just the activities and the strategies, but also thinking about ways that you can enhance your own personal STEM knowledge and STEM teaching knowledge.
Very nice. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming.
It's been a great conversation. Yeah, thank you so much for the opportunity to talk with teachers for the podcast.
Take 4.
Thank you for listening to our podcast.
Be sure to subscribe, rate, and leave a review.
An outstanding review.
On iTunes or your preferred...
Tweet us your science questions.
At Purdue SOS.
Until next time, be super and remember...
You are someone's hero.
We're up.
And we're down.